My name's Marcus. I'm 32. And yeah, I'm the guy who pulled his name off the mortgage after my mom told me, flat out, that I wasn't welcome at Christmas. But let's rewind a bit, because this didn't just come out of nowhere. This story's been building for years, like a slow leak in a ceiling pipe that finally burst one winter night, soaking everything I thought was stable. I've always been the good son. Not the favorite, definitely not that, but the reliable one. The steady one. The one who shows up when the car breaks down or when someone needs help filing taxes. My younger brother, Tyler, he was the one who got away with everything. Total golden child. If I came home late in high school, it was disrespectful. When he stumbled in at 3 a.m. smelling like a brewery, it was boys will be boys. I learned early on that my place in the family was more functional. Less loved, more useful. After college, I landed a solid IT job and started saving like crazy. I didn't party, didn't travel much, didn't even upgrade my car. I was determined to buy a house before I hit 30, and I did. Well, kind of. That's where the story really starts. When I was 28, my mom called me during lunch one day. Said she had an idea, and I already knew what that meant. She'd always call things ideas when what she really meant was, I want something from you, but I'm going to make it sound like it's good for both of us. This time, the idea was that she, my stepdad Ray, and Tyler had found the perfect house, but they couldn't afford it alone. It has enough space for everyone, she said, like we were the freaking Brady Bunch. We could build real family roots here. You could finally have a home office. And think about it, no more rent. The house was gorgeous, I won't lie. 2 stories, big backyard, even a tiny sunroom that I instantly imagined filling with plants and books. The catch, of course, was that I'd be footing most of the bill. But they spun it as an investment for me. They said they'd cover the utilities and groceries while I handled the mortgage. Tyler would get back on his feet soon, Mom said, and start contributing too. Ray had some work issues, but he was figuring things out. The whole thing reeked of uncertainty, but I was tired of throwing money into a rental, and honestly, a part of me just wanted to believe my family could work as a team. So I said yes. I put my name on the mortgage, paid the down payment myself, moved in with them, and for a little while, it was okay. We had dinners together. Tyler was civil. My mom even seemed proud of me. That's probably what kept me going. I didn't realize I was buying into an illusion. The first cracks showed about 6 months in. Tyler still wasn't working. Said he was between opportunities, which is code for playing Call of Duty until 3 a.m. and blaming capitalism for everything. Ray started leaving early in the morning with vague references to a gig, but there was never a paycheck. Utilities went unpaid. Groceries got thinner. And whenever I brought it up, Mom would tilt her head and say things like, well, you're the one with the good job, Marcus. You can handle it, can't you? I tried not to blow up. I really did. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that they'd find work soon, that I just had to be patient. But I started feeling less like a homeowner and more like an ATM with a bedroom. It didn't help that they acted like the house was theirs. Tyler invited friends over constantly. Ray changed the locks without telling me. My mom rearranged my office while I was out of town for work and turned it into her reading nook. The day I found her going through my mail, just to check if there was anything important, I nearly lost it. Still, I bit my tongue. My therapist, yeah, I'd started seeing one, said I had to set boundaries. So I did. I printed out a budget, highlighted what I was paying and what they weren't. I asked them to start pitching in, nothing huge, just a couple hundred each month. They acted like I was asking for a kidney. We're your family, Mom said, like that was some kind of get-out-of-jail-free card. I know, I told her. That's why I've let it go on this long. Tyler rolled his eyes and muttered something about me being obsessed with money. Ray didn't even show up to the conversation. After that, things got weird. Cold. Passive-aggressive. Tyler stopped talking to me unless he needed Wi-Fi fixed. My mom would make dinner but forget to make enough for me. They started having these little family meetings when I wasn't home, and I'd come back to find changes in the house, furniture moved, chores reassigned, no shoes in the living room rule that somehow only applied to me. But the real blow came last November. I'd been swamped with work and looking forward to Christmas. My job had been hectic, and all I wanted was a quiet holiday. I'd even bought decorations, nothing crazy, just a tree, some lights, a wreath for the front door. I set everything up one Saturday morning while they were out. That night, they came back and acted like I'd set fire to the living room. Why didn't you ask us first? Mom said, her arms crossed, glaring at the tree like it had insulted her. I thought we were celebrating together, I said, confused. We decided not to do Christmas this year, Tyler chimed in. It's a waste of money. We all agreed, Mom added. No one told me, I said. Well, maybe if you were around more, she snapped, you'd know what's going on. I felt this numb kind of silence settle in my chest. I just stood there, looking at the lights blinking behind her. She had this tone like I was the outsider, like I'd barged into their space with my tree and my joy and ruined everything. But I swallowed it. I packed up the decorations, took down the wreath, told myself it wasn't worth fighting over. I even convinced myself that maybe, just maybe, next year would be different. And then came this past week. I got home from a business trip and found the living room decked out in lights. Stockings hung over the fireplace. Christmas music playing. They were decorating the tree together, laughing. I stood in the hallway watching them for a second, thinking maybe they were trying to surprise me. But then I heard my mom say, it's so nice not having Marcus around to ruin the vibe. I didn't even know what to do. I walked in, and everything went quiet. Oh, Mom said, flatly. You're back early. Guess I missed the memo about not doing Christmas again, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She didn't even flinch. Just looked me straight in the eye and said, we're not celebrating Christmas with you this year. Just like that. I don't know what she thought I was going to do. Get angry? Cry? Beg to be included? I just nodded, walked to the kitchen, pulled out my laptop. And while they went back to decorating the tree I wasn't invited to, I logged into my mortgage account, clicked Remove Co-Borrower. And when it asked if I was sure, I didn't hesitate. Not for a second. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. Because the moment they realized what I'd done and what it meant, the masks came off. That was when everything exploded. It didn't take long. 3 days later, I was eating lunch in my office when my phone started blowing up. First, it was a text from Mom. Marcus, what did you do to the mortgage? Then another, this time in all caps. You're being dramatic. This isn't funny. I didn't reply. Not right away. I just stared at the messages, the words blurry for a second like my brain was buffering. I'd expected them to notice eventually, but I hadn't expected panic, and I definitely hadn't expected it this fast. I figured maybe I'd have a week, tops, before they realized the implications. I didn't even think they'd care that much. But apparently, they did. My mom tried calling next. I let it ring. Then again. I ignored that one too. Finally, a voicemail came through. I don't know what I expected, some kind of apology maybe. Nope. Marcus, you're being vindictive. This house is a family home, not some financial weapon you can use to punish us. I raised you better than this. Call me back. That last line made me laugh out loud. I raised you better than this. As if the irony wasn't thick enough to spread on toast. By the time I got home that evening, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Normally, Tyler would be gaming and Ray would be pretending to fix something. But now? Nothing. Just the faint hum of the fridge and the smell of burning something in the kitchen, probably one of Ray's infamous experimental stews. I walked in like I always did, set my keys down, kicked off my shoes. I didn't expect a full ambush in the living room, but there they were, Mom, Ray, and Tyler, all sitting stiffly on the couch like they'd rehearsed a courtroom intervention. You need to fix this, Mom said without looking at me. Hi, Marcus. Welcome home, I said flatly, dropping my laptop bag by the stairs. Don't play games, Tyler snapped. You messed with the house stuff. That's illegal. I raised an eyebrow. Illegal? You mean updating the title on a house I paid for? It's not just yours, Mom hissed. We've all lived here. We've made it our home. You've lived here for free, I said. That's different. Ray finally spoke, voice low. You're making a mistake, son. I'm not your son, I said without thinking. The room went still. That one hit. Ray looked away, and my mom's face changed. Not sadness. Not hurt. Just cold. Like a mask she'd worn too long and forgot how to take off. After everything we've done for you, she said quietly. That's when something in me snapped. You mean like gaslighting me into paying your mortgage while you turned me into the family punching bag? Or is it the part where you threw Christmas like a party and uninvited me from my own house? Help me out here. Don't be dramatic, she said again. Always that phrase, like it was a sedative she could inject into any uncomfortable truth. I walked past them to the kitchen, opened the fridge, grabbed a bottle of water. My hands were shaking slightly, but not with fear. It was a different kind of adrenaline-controlled, focused. I could feel something shift in me, like a line had been crossed that couldn't be redrawn. You know, I said, leaning against the counter, I used to think this was my fault. That if I just worked harder, paid more, kept quiet, I could earn a place in this family. Marcus, Mom started, her tone suddenly softer. Too soft. Practiced. But I get it now, I cut in. You don't want a family. You want a landlord who doesn't ask questions. And that's not me anymore. I took a sip of water and looked at each of them. Tyler was red in the face, bouncing his knee like a kid in detention. Ray was unreadable, the kind of quiet that comes from years of checked-out indifference. And Mom, she looked like she wanted to say something clever, something cutting, but the words weren't coming. So I helped her out. I've spoken to a lawyer, I said. Technically, you're all still tenants. But there's no lease, which means you've got 30 days to figure something out. Pure silence. You're evicting your own mother, she said, voice trembling now. After all I've done for you? You stopped being a mother the moment you treated me like a wallet. The room stayed frozen for a moment, like even the furniture was waiting to see what would happen next. And then Tyler stood up fast, knocking over the coffee table with his knee. This is insane, man. You're not serious. I'm completely serious. You can't do this, he shouted, and I could see the cracks forming. His cool, slacker energy melting away into pure panic. I can, I said calmly. And I will. I turned and started up the stairs, ready to lock myself in my room and let the rest of the night pass in silence. But as I reached the top, I heard my mom's voice one last time. You think you're so righteous, she called up. But you'll regret this, Marcus. Families don't forget. I stopped, just for a moment. Then I turned back toward the hallway, not far enough to see her, just far enough for her to hear me. Good. I hope you remember every second. I closed the door behind me and sat down at my desk, breathing slowly. The quiet wasn't peaceful, it was tense, like the air before a storm. Because this wasn't over. And they were about to push back harder than ever. The next morning was the kind of quiet that felt wrong. Not peaceful, more like the air in a room after a huge fight, where every sound feels louder than it should. I could hear someone moving around downstairs, clinking dishes just a little too hard. Passive aggression served up with toast. I didn't go down. I wasn't in the mood for round two, and I knew they weren't either. Not yet. But the silence was only the calm before they regrouped, and sure enough, by that evening, the real campaign had begun. It started with Mom sliding a letter under my door. Yes, a literal letter. In cursive. It was 3 pages long, written on stationery she usually saved for birthday cards. The opening line? I'm writing this as a mother who loves her son, not someone trying to control him. Yeah, okay. The letter was a masterclass in emotional manipulation. Paragraph after paragraph about how much she'd sacrificed for me, how she'd worked 2 jobs after my dad left, how she never complained, she did actually, how I used to cry when I scraped my knee, and how she was always there to pick me up. Then came the guilt. How heartbreaking it was to see our family fall apart, how my actions were tearing everyone down, how I had let money turn me cold. It ended with, I just want my son back. Please don't do this. I sat there reading it, my chest tight, not because I believed her, but because part of me still wanted to. That was the problem with my mom. She didn't raise me with love. She raised me with obligation. And those roots are hard to rip out. I didn't reply. The next day, it escalated. Ray caught me coming out of my room and stood there in the hallway like some makeshift bouncer. You know, he said, arms crossed, this isn't just your house. We've put in a lot of work here. I blinked at him. You replaced a light bulb last month. He didn't like that. His face tightened. This isn't the way families handle things. No, I said, brushing past him. But it's how landlords handle unpaid tenants. That afternoon, the thermostat was mysteriously locked. My mom suddenly decided the upstairs bathroom was off limits. The laundry schedule got switched without notice. Petty stuff. Childish stuff. But it kept building. I found Tyler using my computer in my office one night, just sitting in my chair, looking through my browser tabs like it was totally normal. What are you doing? I asked, trying not to raise my voice. He looked up like I'd interrupted something sacred. Relax. Just checking something. You always act like you own everything. I do own this, I said sharply. Yeah, he said, standing up slowly, his voice turning low. Well, maybe it's time you stop acting like the king of the castle. You're not better than us, Marcus. I just stared at him. And he added, one day you're gonna be the one asking for help. And I hope you remember this moment when we say no. It was almost funny. Help? From them? I wanted to laugh, but all I did was close the door behind him and lock it. That night, I started sleeping with a chair under the handle. I wish I could say that was paranoia. But the next morning, I woke up to find my bedroom door frame scratched near the lock, like someone had tried jamming it. That's when I stopped playing nice. I started documenting everything. Photos, texts. I set up a camera in the hallway pointed at my door. I printed out state tenancy laws, highlighted every clause that gave me the right to issue a notice. And I started planning an exit, not just for them, but for me. Because even when they were gone, I knew this place would feel like a graveyard of tension, a haunted house of unresolved resentment. 2 days later, the final straw came. I got home from work, walked into the kitchen, and stopped cold. They'd gone into my fridge, my shelf, where I kept my stuff separate, and dumped out every container. Tupperware, yogurt, leftovers from the Thai place I liked. All of it in the trash. The shelf was wiped clean. A note was taped to the door. One word. Community. No signature. Just that. I didn't yell. I didn't storm through the house or demand answers. I went upstairs, opened my laptop, and sent the formal notice to vacate. Printed a copy. Slid it under the living room door, where they were watching some reality show. 5 minutes later, I heard Tyler yell, "What is this?" I didn't answer. Not that night. But I knew they'd come knocking. And when they did, they brought backup. Because the next phase of their plan? That's when the extended family got involved. The night after I handed them the official notice, I knew I wasn't going to get peace. They weren't going down quietly, not this crew. I just didn't realize how far they'd go to turn the narrative. It started with Aunt Deborah. She called me the next morning, voice dripping with forced sympathy, like she'd already chosen a side but was trying to make it sound neutral. "Marcus, sweetie, I heard there's been some tension at home. Your mother's very upset. She said you're kicking them out?" I took a deep breath. "They've been living in my house rent-free for almost 4 years, Deborah. They've contributed nothing. I'm just asking them to take responsibility for once in their lives." She paused. "I just don't think it's very Christian, honey. Especially this time of year." There it was. The guilt. The classic family tactic. Make you feel like the villain while they rewrite the script in real time. Over the next week, I got texts from 3 cousins I hadn't heard from since 2019. 2 of them were just checking in. One sent me a passive-aggressive Bible verse. Even my grandmother, who hadn't been lucid for 2 Thanksgivings in a row, somehow recorded a voicemail that said, "Marcus, don't do this to your poor mother." I should have been furious. But instead, I felt clear. Like something had finally snapped into focus. This was the system. The web. The emotional pyramid scheme where my mom was always at the top, spinning her version of reality and getting everyone to buy in. And I was done subscribing. So I stopped replying. To everyone. I went to work. Came home. Documented everything. Waited. The 30-day clock ticked down, and with each week, the temperature in the house dropped. Figuratively and literally, Mom had taken to forgetting to turn on the heat. Tyler slammed doors. Ray sulked. The air was thick with unspoken things, but I kept to myself. Slept with my door locked. Cooked my own food. And waited. 3 days before the move-out deadline, I posted a calm, fact-based thread on Facebook. No rage. No drama. Just the truth. Hey everyone. Just wanted to clarify something that's been floating around the family grapevine. For years ago, I agreed to share a home with my mom, stepdad, and brother. I paid the full down payment and have covered 95% of all expenses since. Despite multiple attempts to create a shared system of responsibility, I've received nothing but manipulation and passive aggression in return. After being excluded from family events in my own home and seeing my boundaries repeatedly violated, I issued a lawful notice to vacate. This was not done out of spite, but out of self-respect. I wish them the best, but I'm done sacrificing my peace to preserve someone else's fantasy of family. And then I logged off. That thread didn't just stop the family guilt campaign, it nuked it. A few people tried to keep it going, but most backed off when they saw the receipts. Screenshots. Emails. Pictures of damage. I didn't name call or air every dirty detail. I didn't need to. The facts spoke loud enough. When move-out day finally came, I didn't gloat. I didn't even speak. I had a friend with a truck help me carry their stuff, what little of it was actually worth keeping, to the driveway. I'd packed it all myself, carefully labeled, no drama. Tyler came out and shouted something about family betrayal, but I didn't answer. Ray kept his head down. Mom just stared at me with a look I couldn't quite place, not anger, not sadness. More like disbelief. Like she still thought I'd cave at the last minute. I didn't. They drove off mid-afternoon. No hugs. No final words. Just the sound of tires crunching the gravel as they disappeared down the street. When the car turned the corner, I closed the door behind me. Locked it. and stood there in the silence. It was the quietest the house had ever felt. No stomping from upstairs. No late-night video games vibrating through the walls. No gaslighting. No guilt. Just me. And for the first time in years, I realized what that meant. Peace. Over the next few weeks, I cleaned. Repainted walls. Got new locks. Reclaimed my office. Turned the second guest room into a music space like I'd always wanted. I even put the Christmas decorations back up, just because I could. I had friends over for the first time in forever. Hosted a game night. Watched dumb movies on the projector in the backyard. Laughed more in 1 month than I had in the last 3 years. And I slept better than I had in a decade. I still get the occasional text from someone, hoping we can all make amends, but I don't bite. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I'm just done. Because sometimes, walking away is the revenge. Living well, setting boundaries, and choosing peace over performance, that's how you win. So yeah, we're not celebrating Christmas with you this year, she said. Cool, I replied. And now? I celebrated exactly how I want. With joy. With music. With people who show up and mean it. And without a single passive-aggressive stalking in sight.